Hi, my name is Chef Steve Cohen, and I'm here today to shoot a short instructional video about the making of gumbo. In my last video, I talked about how gumbo was my go-to dish. And so I'm going to explore the different types of gumbo, the ingredients that we have today, and why I like it, and the flavor profiles, and how you build a really good gumbo. So the basis of any gumbo is the roux. Now, roux is a French word, and it's spelled R-O-U-X. There are 4 different types of roux. There's a white roux, a blonde roux, a brown roux, and a black roux. Today, we're going to use a brown roux, and actually this is what a brown roux looks like when it's done. But we're going to go over, I'm going to show you how to make a roux, how to make a brown roux, and then we'll get that started. And once that's made, then we'll go through the rest of the components and I'll show you how to put gumbo together. So, the first thing we do is a roux is made of equal parts fat and flour. So we're going to heat up the pan, and we're going to start with our oil, and we're going to wait for the pan to get warm. You never want to put any type of oil or fat in a cold pan. So we're going to heat up the pan and then get it warm, and then we're going to put the oil in. Now, again, when we're using other types of fats, you want to make sure that your oil is hot before you add your flour. So here we have some white flour, and I've tried to use whole wheat flour, different types of flour, but it just doesn't work. You need to use white flour for this. So we're going to let this get hot, and then we're going to add the flour. And you can tell as the oil starts to get hot, you can see it starts to ripple. And I put my hand over just to gauge the heat, and it's getting there. So we want to warm the oil, and then we're going to put the flour in, and then we're going to use our whisk to whisk it together. And you can see, actually, if you want to come closer, you can see it start to bubble. Okay, that's what we want to see. And we are going to, you want to use a whisk, and you want to incorporate it. Now, there are 2 methods of doing this. You can either make the roux separately like this, and then brown it, cook it to a brown roux, or you can actually then make it in the pot. And I've already made some in the pot that we're going to use. But this is the consistency that you want. It looks like wet sand. And at this point, this is what we call a white roux. And I'm going to cook this down. I'm just going to cook for another minute or so, just to see. And you'll see this start to turn color. And actually, this will come from this texture, this consistency, and it'll get more liquidy. And as you cook it, the more you cook roux, the less thickening power it has. Roux are used as thickening agents to thicken sauces, soups, that sort of thing. So we're going to do that, and we're going to cook. You cook this and cook this, and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get a roux that actually looks like this. And actually, Emeril Lagasse, somebody asked Emeril Lagasse how long it takes him to make a brown roux, and he said it takes 2 bottles of beer. And we have some beer over here, and if you sip the beer, not chug it, after 2 bottles, your roux will look like that. It'll be done. So this does not belong in the gumbo, but we might have some later. Anyway, so here it is. As you can see, it's starting to change. It's changing color. This is starting to go. But we're going to take this off the stove because I want to get our brown roux and our gumbo going. So I'm going to bring this over to the stove, and we're going to replace it with this beautiful brown roux that I've already made. And this took about a half hour to get to this color, but this is a perfect brown roux. You can take a look at that. It's the color of chocolate. And it's not brown, it's not burned. Okay, I've tasted it. And there's a difference between a brown roux and a burnt roux. And you got to be very careful. Once it gets down to this color, then it can burn. But this roux is what makes gumbo so unique, because it adds that beautiful brown color and it adds a very nutty, unique flavor. And there are very few dishes that I know of that actually use a brown roux like that, except for etouffee uses it and gumbo. So that's what makes it unique. Gumbo really isn't a soup and it's not a stew, it's just its own unique thing, which makes gumbo so special. So we're going to heat this brown roux up, okay, and what we're going to end up doing is, and while this is heating, let's talk about what else we have here. So this we have our onions, our green bell peppers, and our celery. And in New Orleans and in Louisiana, this is called the Trinity. Okay, if you talk about Trinity in California or Oklahoma, they're probably going to look at you like you've got a few bell peppers missing. But this is called the Trinity, and if you're in Louisiana and you talk about Trinity, they'll know exactly what you mean. And this is like a mirepoix, a mixture of vegetables. This is the basis of the gumbo, the Trinity and the roux. And we add everything else to it. So we're heating up our roux. So we have our Trinity, our onions, bell pepper, celery. Then we also have our andouille sausage. Andouille sausage is a pork sausage. It's smoked. It's already cooked. What I've done is to add a little more flavor is I've browned it first, caramelized it to add a little bit more depth to it. Some people don't do that. That's fine. So here's our andouille sausage and our chicken. And our roux is coming along there. And with chicken, there are a couple things that I do. When I'm making gumbo, or when I'm making any type of a stew, I always use chicken with the bone in and the skin on. And the reason why I do that, and that's what I have here, and the reason why I do that is because having the bone in there will do two things. Number one, it'll keep the chicken moist, because this is going to cook for a couple of hours after you put the chicken in. Second thing, you've got the bone in there and it adds more flavor. And as I go through this, I'm going to be talking about building layers of flavor. Okay, it's like building a house. This is your foundation, and then you start adding on and adding on and adding on, and at every step, our goal is to add more flavor and increase that flavor profile. So, here we have our roux, and that's getting pretty hot, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll start adding our Trinity. Remember, this is a Trinity. Okay, but I'm going to take about half the Trinity. You can hear it sizzle. Once you hear it sizzle, then you know that it's hot enough. And what happens is I'm going to turn this off now. I don't want my roux to burn, because it took me a long time to make it. Okay, and what the Trinity does also stops the roux from cooking. You don't want this roux to go much further than it is now, because it will burn. Okay, and then we have some bell peppers. Now the other thing that you're noticing here is I'm using half of what I've got. And the reason why is because I want texture. As this cooks and cooks and cooks, the juices are gonna disperse, and the vegetables are gonna get soft, and they're gonna kind of disappear. And I like texture and flavor and color. And so what I'm gonna do at the end, once all the ingredients are in, I'm gonna add the rest of our Trinity to give it a little bit of extra texture as it cooks. So this is beautiful. So here is your brown roux, and here is your Trinity cooking together. Okay, and again, I've turned it off because any further cooking of this roux is going to make it darker, and you could burn it. So you've got to be really careful when the roux gets to this stage. Okay, so we're going to let this cook for a few minutes. Okay, what we want to do is soften the vegetables. Okay, and usually when you soften vegetables, you do it in oil, you do it in butter. But at this point, we are going to soften the vegetables in the brown roux. So I'm going to give it a little bit more heat. Okay, but again, at this point, you got to be really careful, because again, you don't want this roux to go too far. So we got that. And you can hear, and the thing is, one thing that I always talk to my students about is listening to. You know, your food will talk to you. Okay, and my roux and my Trinity are telling me that, and you can hear it sizzle. If you don't hear your food sizzle when you're cooking it, then the pan isn't hot enough, and that can cause other problems. So here we go, we've got this. This is good. Okay, so we're going to turn that off now. We don't want to cook further. And now it's time to add the chicken broth. So, okay, what we have here is hot chicken broth. And then what I do is I usually go hot to hot. Okay, let me put that over here. And, ooh, my whisk.